Episode 30, Technologies of the Future.
Welcome to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So, switch on your brain and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the podcast, guys. Today's episode is going to be a fun one. We're talking about the future. We all love technology, and I have always been obsessed with what's going to be happening in 5 years, 10 years, 500 years. We'll never really know. But, well, it's fun to guess, and it's fun to postulate and see what science is doing these days to make tomorrow a better day. That sounds super cheesy, but, you know, that's what they say, so I'm just copying them. Well, today with us, we've got Nate Gunn, the guy who actually invented the sticky note.
Hey, everyone.
And we've got a special return guest with us once again, Josh Howell, the guy who enjoys snorting oxygen.
Hello.
Got you off guard with that one.
Yep.
And myself, Daniel Grove, the guy who laughs all the way through every single movie. Well, it's good to have you back on the podcast again, Josh.
Thanks for having me.
You guys had a good week? Anything interesting going on?
Oh, you know.
Yeah.
Living life, conquering the world, living the dream day by day.
Just hanging out here in Boise, having fun in the smoke-filled air.
Why is it filled with smoke?
All the wildfires from Canada and Washington, Oregon, all blowing in. So
how inconsiderate of them. Sheesh.
Yeah.
I thought they were polite.
Keep your smoke there.
Well, Josh, I hear you got a new phone. What'd you get?
Decided to upgrade from my iPhone 6S Plus to the new 8 Plus.
Wow.
Sweet.
So, yeah.
Is that the latest and greatest?
The latest, yes. Greatest is supposedly the iPhone X, but I wasn't going to spend $1,000 on a phone.
Yeah.
What? Why not?
I got better things to spend that money on.
Exactly.
Yes. I can't wait till the 10th version of iPhone comes out because it's going to be weird with an iPhone X and an iPhone 10.
Yeah.
The confusion was quite entertaining. I'm an Android guy myself, so I was just kind of giggling to myself when the whole iPhone X was announced. And they're like, what?
What's going to be on? iPhone 9. Next one, iPhone 11.
Yeah, 9.5 and then 11.
Yeah, that's exactly what.
They'll think of something clever.
Nothing like forgetting how to count.
Oh, no. Yeah,
speaking of which, if any of our dedicated listeners have noticed, we forgot how to count. We misread our episode numbers for a few episodes, but it's in the past. We're moving on. We're a new podcast. It's a new day. Well, I also got a new phone. I got what did I get?
I'm so sorry. I heard the pause.
That was funny. Oh, no. the new one, with the screen and the button.
Yeah, the smartphone,
Yeah. I got the Google Pixel 2, which I really like so far. I've only had it for like 10 hours, but it's awesome.
So jealous.
It's got a fingerprint reader like the iPhone, but it's on the back, which is interesting. So when you hold the phone, naturally your pointer finger is kind of touching the center back of the phone, like below the camera lens. And that's where the fingerprint sensor is. And it unlocks my phone. Like I just hold it naturally and boom, it's already unlocked. And you can also use it for like sliding down for notifications. The camera's really good from what I've found so far. Speaking of new toys, I bought a Yongnuo 300, which is a video light. It's an LED panel. It's a video light that I bought for a gig, which I never even used. It turned out they didn't want video interviews at this gig. So I bought this light for nothing.
Wow. I mean, it'll benefit you in the future.
Oh, I definitely did this weekend. I used it at a wedding finally. I've been bringing it with me to weddings and other things. I just have never got up the guts to bring it out and attach it and just go with it. And I finally did at the end of this really long wedding where there's pretty much nothing happening in the last like 3 hours of a wedding, except for like drunken debauchery and just like pointless photos of people being stupid.
Yeah.
So let's just be honest. Well, it depends on the wedding.
Oh, dang.
But the one I did this weekend was it turned into like not so sober karaoke for like an hour. So I got my video light out and I was like, let's finally use this guy. And I was really happy with how it turned out. It's very bright and it has adjustable color temperatures.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I just had a good time. I actually want to buy another one and I just do like a full on photo shoot with just these two lights. And the cool thing about these for me is that these are continuous lighting. So that means it's not a flash. It's not a strobe. It stays on until I turn it off. And that's awesome for photography because your camera is able to focus since the light is already on. Whereas with a flash, you have to autofocus, and then your flash pops when you take the picture.
Yeah.
So if you're in a dark setting, that's not always it doesn't always work. You have to have a little bit of light to autofocus on your subject. So, yeah, the continuous lighting was really great for focusing. Obviously, I look through my viewfinder and I can see what the photo is going to look like. I don't have to assume what it's going to look like when the flash fires and then check it later. So that's also really cool. So anyway, that was part of the fun of the weekend. The rest of it was visiting a haunted mansion. There's basically this house. I'm not going to disclose the city, but I was doing a wedding in the city, and I had visited a long time ago as a kid, and I remembered down the street from my friend whose house I stayed at was this creepy, thrown together hodgepodge mess of a quote unquote house. And apparently this crazy guy was living there building this house like on his own. And it looked like it's made out of like spare construction materials, cinder blocks and random windows and wood panels, just crap. And somehow he's put together this pretty cool structured house. I always told myself I'd come back and take pictures of it sometime, but I never knew when I'd get back there. So I was back there this weekend for the wedding, and I drove over to the house, and sure enough, it was still there. But I didn't know if anyone lived in it yet. I don't know if it's even livable. It was just kind of like a mystery house. I was really kind of scared to walk up to it because I don't know, some crazy person might come out with a shotgun.
Yeah, it's a good way to go missing.
Yes, it is. And it's a great premise for a movie too, honestly. A horror movie. And I didn't want to be a subject of an upcoming horror movie. So I was very cautious, and I was looking for any signs of life, which is really hard to tell when a house is basically made out of trash. You just don't know.
Was like the house overgrown?
Oh yeah, lots of huge bushes and trees. So even more so, I really couldn't see any windows.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell, and so I was really just going off from my hearing, trying to listen to anything. And so I was taking pictures real cautiously, trying not to completely trespass. But honestly, if this guy, if there's people living here, they should do a little better job at letting people know this is an inhabited space. So I'm taking pictures very cautiously, and then I hear it, the creepy piano.
Oh no!
I'm not even lying. It sounds like I'm making this up, but I'm not. Scout's honor. I heard a creepy piano. Now it did sound like it was coming from a cell phone, and honestly, my mind instantly ran through this scenario. Creepy people live in a house. They know it's creepy, and they like to mess with locals, so they rigged up a motion detected security system that triggers this music.
That's a good way to cope for fear.
I'm not lying. That's popped into my head instantly that when that moment happened. I think
you're the only person that went to the technical side of they're just trying to scare me. Everybody else will be like, nope, gotta go. There's
the infrared beam on the ground, and it triggers a song on a computer.
No way I could be afraid right now.
Yeah, there's no things ghosts. No such thing as ghosts. So it was, it kind of freaked me out. But at the same time, I was very cautious. So I quickly walked backwards to my car.
I would have just thrown a rock and see what happens.
That sounds like a really bad idea. So I took pictures of what the locals consider a haunted house, and I lived to tell the story of it.
Yeah, I guess the next time you go to this place we won't talk about, we should go inside, and you should take me. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and scary. Meet the local residents.
But we have to go during the daytime because I'm not in for the whole nighttime stuff.
Well, that was it for my interesting weekend. How about you guys? Have y'all watched anything interesting lately?
I was messaging Josh, I think yesterday, and I was just like, "Hey, what are you up to? How are things going?" And he's like, "Hey, I'm watching the Ocean series." I was like, "What?" And I just kind of looked around the room and I was like, "What the? I'm watching the Ocean series." I started Ocean's 11. So did he. I was like, "Okay." So then I was like, "Oh, maybe he'll just watch the first one." And me stupidly enough, I should know Josh that he's going to watch all of them until he finishes. But I had a good idea that I was going to watch number 12 today. And around the same time, I'm like, "Hey, you getting ready for the episode?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm just watching Ocean's 12." I'm like, "Okay, I'm turning mine off. Forget that."
Yeah, Josh, do you have a problem you need to admit to, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I two problems apparently. One, Nate, I guess I have to admit on the podcast, I'm stalking you.
Wouldn't be surprised.
No,
you've installed a wireless camera and you're watching from Boise, Idaho.
Yep, that's it. That's
what that flashing is. I'm just joking.
No, I mean, it's one of those. Once you start a movie in a series, you can't just ended after that
Yeah.
movie. You have to watch the entire series. I don't care if you've seen the entire series 10 times. I mean, and it
Gotta do the
doesn't
whole
even have
thing.
to be a good series for me either. Like the Transformers series. If I watch one,
Heck no.
I have to watch them all. And I don't want to, but I have to.
And so we never go down
So-
that rabbit hole ever.
I call that OCED, obsessive compulsive entertainment disorder.
Oh,
You gotta finish them all. You can't do just
Nice.
one.
I mean, come on.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
let's
you
not
can't.
pick on Oceans 11, 12, and 13. Like, they're great. So,
I think I've seen two of them. Now remind me, what's with the oceans and the numbering? What is that?
Yeah, George Clooney's character is Danny Ocean, and
Okay.
it's how many people he has involved in the
Oh,
scheme.
yeah.
so each sequel he
So-
has to add an extra person for it to be continuous. It'd just be
Yes.
weird. So we're talking about past things, old movies, but now we're going to switch it around. We're going to talk about the future. So I have this funny, embarrassing story about when I was a kid, thinking forward to the future, because growing up watching sci-fi movies and cartoons, I was always thinking about the future. And one crazy, wacky idea I had about the future was that when the year 2000 hit, like literally July 1st, that morning minute that happens when it becomes 2000, that the future would happen. And literally everything, like a wave would sweep around the earth and everything would just transform into that future technology that I hoped
Heck
it would
yeah.
be. Is that crazy? Did anyone else think like that?
I was thinking the same thing.
Because, early in the 90s, I guess I was like, oh yeah, when 2000 comes, we'll have all this cool stuff. And then it's like 1997, 1998, 99, and we don't have anything related to the cool stuff. But like, no, it still has to happen though. Because 2000, that's just like a futuristic number,
Yeah. I think when I was younger, I thought of that kind of stuff, but it wasn't until I was older, like I understood what I was thinking. But
Mhm.
honestly, in my mind, I was thinking like when year 2000 happened, like people were going to show up at your door and like, or you go to stand in line and get like a care package of technology or something. But
Nice. Here's your hologram projector. Here's your laser gun.
You know what I'm saying? Like when you remodel a home, like they had new standards all of a sudden.
Yeah, boom. Where would you like your holodeck?
That's the one I'm still waiting on.
For real, that's all we need, man. Wasn't there an episode of Star Trek where there was a character that was like addicted to the holodeck?
Yeah.
I want to watch that one. All right, well, let's get on with the discussion. We are talking about future technologies, if you hadn't guessed that already, in case you maybe just didn't read the name of this episode. The idea for this episode came to me after watching a video that was jumping around Facebook maybe a year ago. And
Yeah.
it was basically a video that came from a page or an organization. I don't know what they are. They're called Science Nature Page. So I guess if you're talking about the Facebook page, it's the Science Nature page. Hey, they named it, I didn't. So they made this video, I guess. They produced it, and it's basically going through the decades from 2030, 2040 to 2050. It's listing a whole bunch of predicted and projected technologies that may exist at those times. And I just thought it was really intriguing. It was really well made, and it looks like the stuff that's in this video is coming from research and from papers and things that are working on right now. Not just like, well, we want to have this or that, but it's like actually like scientists somewhere, multiple places are working on to get there. So I like that. It wasn't just, random stuff. But so we're going to go through kind of, I guess, through the decades and really just talk about a few of these technologies and predictions and projections that we obviously hope come true. And some of the things that, exist currently as far as like, where are we in getting this technology and what the goal is for these things. So let's kick it off. We'll start with the 2030s. One thing that looks like should be happening in the 30s and possibly even in the 20s, if we're going off of Elon Musk's plan, is we will be landing something on Mars.
That's exciting.
Yes. Are you guys like?
I mean, like a lot of it is just Elon Musk. That's all I ever hear about. But
it's just him.
I was reading or listening to his book and listening to him talk, and the first time I've ever actually hear him say he's okay if he doesn't make it to Mars. He just wants to be like that big stepping stone to be able to launch to Mars. And I was like, wow. Because like at the beginning, he was like, I want to go to Mars. I'm going to be in Mars. We're going to colonate Mars. We're going, and then all of a
and
sudden,
like, whoa.
yeah. And then it was more like, I shouldn't say recent, like as in yesterday, but more in like the most recent videos. He says, he just wants to be a stepping stone to be able to launch people's thoughts that it is possible.
Right. It looks like that's the big passion of his. And that's the big push of his companies is, the future he sees. he sees in the far future as being out there, and he wants to be the guy that starts building those bridges.
Yeah.
So might not be a total success, and they've already had some failures, some pretty bad ones. I don't know if people have died yet in their failures, because I think most of it's unmanned stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about anybody.
I don't think anyone's died yet, which is good. Yeah, they the two failures that I know of is they had a rocket land vertically, and it landed successfully, and then just like a second later, boom, it exploded from the top, and it was huge. And then another video, there's a much smaller rocket that did land vertically on a pad out in the water, but it tipped over, and then boom.
Yeah. That was more recent, right?
Yeah, I think so. As much as I hate to see millions of dollars go up in flames, it was really cool to watch. Sorry, Elon.
Well, he has enough money, and he. I remember watching that live event through Facebook, like on and off for the last couple of days when it was airing.
Yeah. So looking into things about Mars and, landing on Mars, they want to put colonies on Mars, and they do want to take some manned ships to Mars as well, but that's going to be after their first trip. Yeah. In 2022, the goal is to land some equipment on Mars. From what I read, it would be some kind of power plant, I think mining equipment, and a habitat. Yeah. So they're kind of setting up, a small base for the later trip, which currently that I read, I'm sure this might change, but I read 2024 is when they're going to take a manned ship, the BFR, which can carry 100 people maximum, to there. And, they're going to fill up that small colony. I'm sure bring more stuff with them and start building a small base. And they've got this really cool animation that I really liked on their website, where it shows kind of the projected plan for the Mars base. And, it starts with like one dome and a power grid and like a landing pad. Mm-hmm. And then like the phase 2 is like there's 2 more landing pads, and there's more domes and like a garden and more equipment, and it just like kind of crossfades into like the new stages, and it was really cool to watch. I was like, this looks like an awesome video game. Is there a video game for that, building a colony on Mars? Because that would be awesome.
I don't think so. It would be pretty cool.
Have you guys played those like building type games with like SimCity and stuff?
Yeah,
they need to make a space one. That would be sweet.
That would actually be a lot of fun.
So yeah, there's lots of difficulties that we know of, and I'm sure many that we're going to discover when it comes to living on Mars and working on Mars. Obviously, the gravity is much less. One of the big dangers is the atmosphere. There is barely any atmosphere on the surface. They've measured 1% of the atmosphere compared to Earth. So it's almost a vacuum, which makes it cold and not safe, because your suit is sealed in a vacuum. That means there's danger of bursting outwards, and any little puncture or scratch, you could be done for real quick. The other difficulty is the time delay. It's really not that far, but there's 3 minutes one way. If we're controlling something remotely, there's a total 6-minute delay from when we send the control command to when we see feedback that comes back to us. And it's 300 million miles away. So there's also that. So someone gets stranded. Woo-wee.
Then they just watch The Martian.
Yeah. I remember The Martian, it seemed like their trip took like 3 years. But for what I read, the BFR can do it in like 6 to 9 months.
Wow. I think The Martian may have taken place a little bit farther in the future, though.
Yeah, but that should make the time shorter. Not 3 years.
Wait, you're telling me The Martian's not a documentary? This entire time, I'm thinking Matt Damon's the one that's going to solve this.
Elon Musk needs to hire Matt Damon, because if anyone gets stuck on Mars, it's going to be Matt Damon.
Well, before Matt Damon, they need to hire the author for the book.
Because I need to know how to make plants out of my poop, to survive.
Yeah.
It's crucial training. So we're talking about the BFR. That is the Big Falcon rocket. And that can hold 100 people. And I think there's like 40 or 42 different cabins.
Wow.
And yeah, so that's a pretty big crew. And there's also rooms for entertainment and I'm sure scientific experiments, stuff like that. So this is a massive construction, and it's really cool because the BFR is actually a lifting rocket that holds a shuttle on the front half, which has its own jets. But basically, the BFR will lift up a shuttle and out of orbit, which that's the hard part of living on here on a planet is we got to get out of the orbit gravity and escape velocity so we can get off the dang planet. And it takes a lot of energy and a lot of work.
Yeah.
So once we get out of the planetary gravity well, then it launches a shuttle. The shuttle has its own jets and finishes the trip. But that bottom piece, which I believe is the actual BFR, that actually rockets itself back down to Earth and lands vertically, and we can use it again. That's what's really awesome about this. Because currently with NASA shuttles, we've got these gigantic tanks of gas that launch this thing out into orbit, and then they crash down into the ocean or they float around the Earth and they're space junk. Elon Musk has really got a cool... Yeah, Elon Musk has a lot of neat possibilities for this because these can also be used to fly people around the Earth really quickly, and then it lands vertically, and we can use it again and again. A trip that could take 11 hours can take 30 minutes.
And like a plane ride.
Yeah, and some rich people are willing to pay $10,000 to get to their next business meeting in under an hour. That's across the Earth.
Heck yeah!
Like that's awesome. So.
Yeah, I know Elon wants to make some of that like almost like a commercial airline. And
that could fund a lot of the space stuff.
Yeah, and he's also talked about like having the X Games in space, but it's more like racing stuff. That's why they sent one of the Teslas up to space to show that they can race in space. It's possible, and that they would like to work on that. So.
Elon Musk, the space race wasn't literally a race. I'm sorry to tell you. So
as far as what you were saying, I'm looking at an article. I forgot what the website was, but they said that SpaceX, which is Elon Musk, they are currently trying to find their landing spots on Mars currently. And then, as far as using the rockets as kind of commercial airlines, just kind of put that in perspective. London to Hong Kong is an 11-hour and 50-minute flight, but they're saying with that it would only take 34 minutes.
Yeah, that's the same numbers I was looking at. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, that'd be. I mean,
I'm not even in Hong Kong, but it's still cool.
I'm not even worried about going to space. Get me across the globe in an hour. That'd be amazing.
Strapped into a rocket. How cool is that? I wonder what the G's are, though. How many G's you have to take?
I wonder if it's going to be the airline through space or underneath the ocean to get us to the other side of the world.
What if they make you take a laxative like 2 hours before taking your trip? Just to, get it out ahead of time.
The G-force is going to be awesome, but hopefully take your laxative.
It's rough on the bowels. So we've been talking about space with landing on Mars and setting up a colony and all that cool stuff. So some other space related predictions that are currently in the works is a space elevator. So in case you don't know what a space elevator is, basically there is on the equator of Earth, there's going to be a base station, which going vertically up into the sky, out into space, is a cable driven elevator car.
That goes all the way to Mars.
Oh no, gosh. That would be a nightmare. So we've got a cable-driven car going up into space, and basically this is going to be probably a larger cabin that can fit, a good amount of people, large pieces of equipment, chunks of spaceship, that they're going to be building out in orbit. And at the end is an actual space station that stays in place around the Earth. So this is called a geostationary orbit, which really is kind of confusing because it's not, it is technically orbiting the Earth, but it's orbiting at the same speed as the Earth's rotation. So it stays stationary. It's also called the Clarke orbit because Arthur C. Clarke did not come up with this idea, but he's the one that really made it pretty popular with a lot of his early sci-fi books, including 2001 Space Odyssey's sequel, 3001 Space Odyssey. There's some space elevators in that movie. I bet you didn't know that sequel existed.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's the 4th book in the series. Yeah, so a space elevator has a lot of benefits because we can get things into space easier than it would be if we were using a rocket to lift it out of the gravity well of Earth. In that last prediction, we were talking about how, difficult it has been for us to get big and heavy stuff out into space because of rockets. They take a lot of energy, they take a lot of money, and you have to make them powerful, which makes them heavy, which means they need more power to lift that off, and we really can't get much out into space without spending $1 bajillion. But a space elevator is a clever way around that because we can take people up into orbit. One thing I read it said it would take a week, which is really long. Wow. I did not know it would take that long. I thought it'd be quicker.
Never mind. I'll stay home.
Yeah, I don't want to sit in an elevator for a week while it goes like 1 billion miles off the Earth.
Are we there yet?
Right. Well, speaking of miles, so basically the predicted height for the space elevator is just under 60,000 miles off the Earth's surface.
Goodness gracious.
60,000 miles. Yeah.
Jeez.
The trick to the space elevator that really the whole thing hinges on is the having technology that's strong enough to hold the weight of that pulling force of a heavy space station being out in orbit and it's spinning around the Earth. We've got to connect these two things down to the Earth, and that is a lot of tension, not just up and down, but left and right with wind. We have an atmosphere there, pushing and pulling and spinning around that whatever that elevator structure is going to be. I would not want to be in that elevator during a storm. So what they're wanting to use is something called carbon nanotechnology. So this is super strong threads of carbon that is woven together by a very complex technique that's basically weaving together these things at a molecular level. And that's what makes them so crazy strong. A carbon nanotube is 100 times stronger than steel of the same size.
Wow.
That's amazing. It's kind of like how diamonds and crystals are so strong because on a molecular level, they're a very stable structure, cubes and triangles sometimes. So it's sort of like that. And on a molecular level, the carbon nanotube is very dense and woven together like a rope. So it's super strong. So once we can figure out how to make more than 3 centimeters of this material, which is how far we've gotten so far, we need 60,000 miles of it. Then we can make this thing.
So you're saying from the ground, 60,000 plus miles in the sky. Is it like a dumb weight, or is there a motor, or how are they getting in the lift?
So they're getting the elevator piece up and down through electroconductive motion. So that's either a motor or kind of like the speed train. You know how it's kind of hovering on electromagnetic magnets that propel it forwards in a sequence. So they're thinking of using that, which honestly, I don't know how that much energy usage is going to be like realistic, because that's a lot of energy.
Yeah, especially when you break like the atmosphere bubble. Can you still use that energy in space? And does it?
Yeah, it actually be easier.
Yeah. I mean, like, I get that, but breaking a lot of people say there's a bubble, and so if we're going to use that phrase on the bubble around the Earth, breaking that, like, I wonder if it would affect between atmospheres, like gravity to no gravity.
I don't think so. I mean, as you go up higher and higher, it's kind of a gradient. There's not really a fine line of where you hit this or that. It's the atmosphere gets thinner and thinner. There's less oxygen particles in that zone, and gravity affects you, a little bit less, a little bit less.
Yeah.
So it's better higher up, but down low is or in the middle is where you're going to hit a lot of that atmosphere going upwards and wind and turbulence.
So I wonder if the return is going to be a little bit harder because you're reversing the process.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Interesting.
But it's a lot of work, and it is hinging on a lot of hopeful technologies that need to, be in place first before this thing even begins.
Well,
but
we're
the
at
payoff
3 centimeters.
Yeah, we got 3 centimeters, guys. Keep on going. Maybe a few more millennia, we'll have 1 mile. But the payoff is pretty big. Currently, 1 kilogram of cargo, if we send it up in a shuttle with NASA or SpaceX, it's going to take around $22,000 for 1 kilogram. Woo-wee. But with a space elevator, they estimate it would be down to $200. Oh. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And in a lot of sci-fi, including Arthur C. Clarke's books, the space elevator is kind of like the trick to getting into outer space, because we're able to ship up raw materials as well as personnel to work in a space station. And at the end, the space station that's connected is where we build stuff in almost zero gravity, not completely zero gravity, but almost. Or we can, ship the stuff off farther outside of gravity and really start building ships, kind of like in Star Trek. Because, we can't build a ginormous ship on the Earth and send it off through the atmosphere. That's just not realistic. So we got to build stuff out in space. We need to get out there with people, and we need to get the materials out there too. And that's the tricky part. And the space elevator is a great solution.
So you keep saying space station. Are you talking about a brand spanking new one, or are you talking about the current? Is this like existing one out there?
No, this would be a brand new space station. And I don't think it would be as big as the International Space Station, but who knows? If things are very, efficient as far as getting things up and down, they could build a pretty elaborate thing. We see these space elevators in Space Odyssey 3001, as well as in another Arthur C. Clarke book called The Fountains of Paradise. And I'm sure tons of other books that I can't think of off the top of my head, but they're kind of a whimsical, far out there sci-fi concept that there's real people working on right now.
I hope I'm alive when this happens. I want to go.
and then skydive off it. Go up and
Heck
just jump
yeah.
out the window.
All right, challenge accepted. What is
Dude,
it?
space jumps. That's where the next thing is.
August 2018. And when it's done, I'll jump off the top. Probably just float, but.
So one of the articles that I read about the space elevator says one of the early predictions is it could be ready as early as 2025.
Whoa, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't
That's
think
very
that
hopeful.
Yeah, I don't think that one's right, but
Given the scale and the energy requirements, I'm feeling like this is like 2050s.
oh yeah, no, I'd agree with that. But to put things in perspective for people that don't understand how much a kilogram really is, it's 2.2 pounds.
Oh man.
So
2.2 pounds, that's like a small dog.
yeah,
Costs $22,000.
small dog for those that are married, maybe your wife's purse.
Oh.
Nice.
Okay, so we've been talking about some of the predictions as far as what's going to happen as in outer space, but to kind of bring this home, bring this back to the human side of some of these predictions. I know they're predicting by the 2030s we should have the technology to start 3D printing replacement organs.
Ooh, awesome.
So for me, I think that one's a really interesting one. I spent a few years in the medical field, doing as a dialysis technician, dealing with people that had kidney failure, and I know currently they are about to enter into human trials as far as an artificial kidney. One of my patients here in Idaho actually had gotten the phone call saying that she had been selected as one of the people that was going to be up for that human trial.
Wow.
And I think the 3D printing of organs, being in the medical field, I'm also a diabetic. Just a little bit about me, getting to the point where you can start taking some of these organs that may not be functioning properly and helping people to, get off of some of these medications or have a prolonged life, not even necessarily, oh, hey, we're going to make you immortal type thing, but have more of a normal lifespan as opposed to, hey, your kidney's no longer functioning and you've only got, until you get a kidney replacement, you're going to have to be hooked up to this machine that for 3 hours a day for 3 to 4 days a week. I mean, that's not really a life. I mean, so I think there's some pretty cool options out there and some pretty cool theories. And I mean, what do y'all think?
It's super exciting. I love 3D printing because of what it is. I mean, you're making matter, complex matter, in a 3-dimensional space. It's not just like a computer printing on a piece of paper, but you're printing an object, and that can be so many things. It could be, a replacement gear for a robot. It could be an organ for your body. It could be a muscle or a tendon that is ripped. As long as you have a blueprint that's accurate, and importantly, you've got the right material to print onto this, into this 3D space. That's pretty much all you need. I think the materials is where things are really progressing, and that's what's holding us back mostly, is getting the right materials to print and have it, all work together and the body accept it. But I mean, I think they've already made an ear and some other body parts in 3D printing, right?
Yeah.
I've seen some stuff already.
I've been seeing a lot of like robot arms and hands and stuff that they did 3D printing out of. So I mean, it's not identical to your hand, but it looks like a robot hand.
Yeah, printing prosthetics. I mean, that's easy compared to the organs. Though. I'm talking about like they have been printing organic related things already.
So when we're talking about 3D printing an organ, we're talking like when I think of 3D printing, I'm thinking like hard plastic. Is that what we're thinking, or we're talking like skin
squishy
related?
and soft?
Yeah, the theory is the 3D printed organs would be it would be it wouldn't be a hard plastic like almost like an implanted kidney, like a an artificial kidney, or like the artificial hearts that are hard, they don't actually beat like a human heart. These 3D printed organs would function like a human organ. They would beat like a heart. It'd move.
Cool.
It'd be squishy to the touch.
Yeah, there's no motors or wires. It's organic matter printed into the exact shape and detail as a real human organ.
It's gonna be pretty cool to read up on the first person that gets a 3D printed heart.
Man, make a whole body. Put someone's brain in it, make a whole 3D printed body.
Yeah.
That happens in Altered Carbon. They make a whole body 3D printed just right in his basement.
Yep. Yeah,
That's
so
cool.
crazy. So absolutely crazy. And I guess that brings up an interesting question. I mean, if we want to talk about it, what are some of the downfalls that you see? I mean,
Well,
we see all the benefits of printing, 3D printing organs, but not everybody out there will use the technology for good.
Yeah. Well, it can. One argument against such an amazing medical advancement as this is that it could encourage bad habits and bad lifestyles, like we see in the movie The Island. Remember in The Island, it was just rich people who get in a car wreck or destroy themselves with drugs, or their wife murders them or whatever. They just replace that body part with one they already had harvested. So people could not value their life as much or value other people's lives as much because just get a new one next week. Now that's just kind of one side of the coin. There's a lot of other viewpoints to it. A danger for this technology is the body could reject that matter. I don't know how the whole rejection process works, but what if it's accepted at first, but then later, like a year later, your immune system decides to attack that thing? It could be fatal. What if the material doesn't hold up, after 5 years and your organ starts to just fall apart? There's a lot riding on us making an organ, trying to make it as good as God made it.
Yeah. I mean, I know when you get like plastic and implants and stuff like that, you have to take a daily pill just for your body to accept it.
Oh yeah,
so,
that's right.
Mm-hmm. But if you're putting something 3D printed matter, whatever it is, it's kind of getting a little bit more in depth, like an organ or a heart or a lung. That it's not just let's just pop it open and pull it out kind of thing. It's like, no, we got to rip you open, stop whatever like the bad thing that's happening to your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're probably gonna have to do a lot of parallel advancements in bioengineering, which is making something that your body is going to accept.
Yeah.
And
that's hard because everybody's different.
Yeah, blood types and everything else. And they'll get there, I'm sure, because this is a really viable technology, and it's pretty exciting if we can pull it off. It reminds me of a scene in Bicentennial Man in the book, where the robot Andrew is kind of in a court. He's in like this big court where they're deciding whether or not to grant him humanship or human rights and individuality as a human, as a being itself. He says, you guys don't see me as deserving, individuality as a human because I'm artificially made. But in fact, parts of my body have been replaced by organic pieces and I'm becoming more like you. But in contrast to that, you guys out there, they're talking to the people in the court that are, making the decision on his life. He says, but you guys, many of you are 70% artificial right now. And it's body parts that I helped engineer because he did some engineering on the moon in the book, and he makes artificial organs for humans, and it's just like a cool little switcheroo there. Yeah. But you guys think in the far future that a lot of human body parts will just be artificial?
That's kind of a cool thought, but kind of like
It's cyborgism, really. It's what a cyborg is.
I guess call me old fashioned or whatever, but to me there's that part of me that goes, that'd be really cool to be able to, hey, I have an option to replace my arms and now I can, crush a car and not just a soda can.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. That'd be kind of cool, but the sci-fi nerd in me goes, that's the beginning of the Borg from Star Trek. I mean,
right, or someone hacking into your limbs.
Yeah, just
holding them hostage.
I don't know. It kind of scares me all at the same time.
Oh my gosh! What if there was bio-cryptoware?
Oh no!
They encrypt your fake arm until you pay the ransom, then you can use it again.
I think there's a movie like that, but I've never seen.
There was a movie. I want to say it was with Jude Law called Repo Men. where these people were getting organs, and if they getting these 3D printed organs, and if they couldn't make the payments, his character had to go and repossess these organs.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
man. Like I'm gonna have to
I
take
had
that
forgotten
kidney.
about that movie.
That movie came out in 2010. I don't think I've ever seen it. Wow. I love Jude Law. Ever since AI came out, I've been a big fan of him.
Yeah, Jude Law is pretty good, but you know, kind of segueing with Jude Law. I mean, talking about some of these other advancements that they're talking about. They're saying by the 2050s we should be able to genetically engineer our babies, and so gosh. Jude Law had. I don't know if you saw the Jude Law movie Gattaca.
Yes, classic.
Where you know that's kind of one of the premises of that movie, where you know the babies are being genetically engineered to be
to perfection, and to fit a caste system.
To fit these systems. Wow. But the crazy thing is so they're saying that that's by the 2050s. I mean, this stuff's already starting to happen now.
Yep, CRISPR technology is taking the DNA world by storm.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got celebrities like Chrissy Teigen and her husband John Legend that are able to determine the sex of their baby before the baby's even born, and you know, hey, we want a little girl, and go in there and there you go, you've got a little girl.
I got you, fam.
Yeah.
I want a black redhead with blue eyes and want to be a girl. I got you, fam.
Yeah,
it'll be like a menu system. You just like check off the boxes of what you want, and you know the bill starts adding up. Boom, customized babies.
Yeah, but I mean, having the religious background that we all do, you know, I keep going back to doing stuff like that. Are we replacing God?
Yeah.
You know, are we, you know, 3D printing organs? I mean, yes, there's the medical benefits to that, and there's the benefits, and you're going to get people that say, yes, it's good, but you're also going to get some people that go, no, that's a bad idea, because are you going against the nature of things?
Yeah.
You know,
if you have to take things to an extreme to see if they could, you know, what the risk is of that horrible outcome happening. And one of the extremes is people just continuously replacing their body parts until they live basically forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd love to live until I'm 150, but past that I probably won't. So another prediction regarding human life and quality of life that's projected to come out in the 2040s, and this is basically where prisoners will, instead of taking up taxpayer money and employee time of staying in a prison for X number of decades for the crime, they will be hooked up to a computer and or given drugs that will make their brain feel like they've served the time that they're due, but the time really hasn't passed. It's just in their brain that the time sensitivity has been elongated, and they feel like they were just in prison in their cell for 20 years, and it was just 20 minutes. And then when their time is up, they come out of their drug coma, or they detach the computer electrodes or whatever, and boom, this person is now served 20 years in their mind.
Wow, that's crazy.
How do you guys feel about that?
So, like, when you first start talking about this, all I hear is Ready Player One, when they are like in prisons and they're doing work. But when you say 20 years, mentally, are they aging 20 years even though their body didn't age?
No,
but
it's just all in their mind.
Oh, wow. That's trippy.
I feel like this is torture. I don't like this at all.
Yeah, I think something like that is probably ethically wrong.
Yeah.
Because
it's really dangerous.
There's so many things that you know. You mentioned that one of the theories is maybe like a drug.
Yeah.
You know, when mentally, if you think you've been in a prison for 20 years and it's only been 20 minutes, when you come out of that drug induced state, like you're thinking it's 20 years in the future. I mean, that reacclimation process, or the possibility of, I mean, even if it's, let's say you get a 25-year sentence and you actually have to serve 5 of it, like literally 5 years in prison, but mentally it's been 25. 5 years of receiving that drug over and over and over. I mean, there's the drug addiction, there's the reacclimation. I mean, stuff like that. Just
Oh yeah, I didn't
man.
think about that. Yeah, the articles that I found gave the two options. One is a psychotropic drug that changes your understanding of time, and the other one is uploading your brain to a computer, speeding up time in the program, and you're living sentiently inside the digital cell with time sped up, and then you come back out of it. Either way, I feel like the outcome of that in so many ways would be really harmful to the person, and it's not going to rehabilitate them. It's not going to teach them a lesson. Sure, you just saved a bunch of money and time for an establishment at a prison, but at what expense? Like, either A, this person realizes, oh, after maybe a course of weeks, they're going to kind of come to terms with the fact that they really didn't serve 5 years, and that all those 25 years of torment and anxiety and loneliness or whatever they went through in their fake cell in their mind was fake. They're going to realize that, and it's just going to it might wear off. And the effect of being in prison at all is just a fantasy to them. They're going to come to terms with that. Or the opposite, they're going to have a mental breakdown and their brain is going to be like broken when they come out of this. It's just either way, I just don't see any good outcome where someone's like gets reestablished into society and they're just totally fine.
Yeah, no, there's funny enough, we were talking about Star Trek Deep Space Nine earlier, and there is an actual episode where Chief O'Brien is convicted of a crime, and it's a similar situation. He serves his entire prison sentence mentally, but he's only gone for a few days, and then he's brought back to Deep Space Nine, and the entire episode is him dealing with this reacclimation to what's going on. And it's just, and then there was an episode of Star Trek Voyager where character Tom Paris, he's convicted of murder, and they implant the crime back into his mind. And so once a day he relives the crime that he's committed. So instead of actually serving jail time, he has to relive the crime. And, stuff like this, the ethics, and it's just a very scary thought that we could do something like that.
Yeah.
And we can get to that point. Yes, it saves a lot of money, but people right now are talking about the prisons, we need to rehabilitate the criminal. We need to rehabilitate the person that's been convicted of the crime.
Yeah.
I don't see either one of these options as being rehabilitation.
No. And if any amount of their crime is caused by, a psychological disease like mental illness or some other issue that we're still, discovering and understanding, like this is not going to deal with it at all. And one really dangerous thing to the human mind is being alone. Solitary confinement will screw you up in the real world in no time. And I don't know how they're going to simulate a prison time with believable characters and interactions of social interactions to keep them sane. In the meantime, are they just going to be alone for 25 years? Like, how are they going to come out of that okay? And then when they realize it was all a lie, that alone will put another load on the brain that's just incomprehensible. It's just not good. You mentioned Star Trek. Another story that kind of lines up with this is The Jaunt by Stephen King. This is a book in the 80s that he wrote about space travel. Interestingly enough, I feel like Stephen King never touches sci-fi. Maybe that I just haven't read enough of his stuff. But in The Jaunt, there is a technology developed where someone can travel instantaneously through space, really great distances, pretty much instantly. And what it is, you go in this capsule and you come out on the other end in really no lag time. But what's really happening is when you go in, you have to be put under. So you're unconscious, you teleport, and then they wake you up on the other end. And the reason for that is because if you are conscious, you realize that what happens in the in-between while you're teleporting is you're in there for an eternity. So time is like void when you're teleporting through this hyperspace, and you experience an eternity of time alone in this white realm of nothingness. And then eventually, it's over and you come out on the other end. But if you're conscious to experience it, it just breaks the human mind, and pretty much no one survives it. And that's how I feel about this, is like that, temporary, but almost eternity to them alone. That'll break you.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
For sure.
But if we flip this upside down, I can think of some good uses for extending time inside someone's mind. Like for myself, I am a problem solver. I'm a artist, and like if I could use technology or a safe drug to make my brain operate for 24 hours in the span of 1 hour, that would be incredible. Like,
Well,
wow.
yeah.
It's basically speeding up your brain, which is probably
Well-
really dangerous, but
Yeah.
Well, what I think of when I think about this is the scene from The Matrix where Keanu Reeves' character Neo is learning kung fu. I mean, they just put the little disc in, and within seconds it uploads the entire knowledge of kung fu into his brain, and now he's a kung fu master. Or when Trinity needs to learn how to fly the helicopter, she's like, "Hey, I need the program for this," and they just upload it. I mean, it would be great to be able to learn a lifetime's worth of knowledge on any subject in the matter of hours or even a day.
yeah,
I mean,
incredible.
so that would be amazing.
Yeah. If we ever figure out a safe way to do this, there's a lot of great, a lot of good things that we could do with it. But of course, there's also the downside of that is people could get addicted to that escapism.
Yeah.
And what if the machine breaks and you're just stuck in there mentally forever and you never get out?
And that would suck a lot.
Yeah. I wouldn't do well with that. And I like people. I need social interactions. So, so speaking of computers, another projected technology that is definitely in the works right now is quantum computing. So this is projected to be around the 2040s, maybe 2050s, when we have fully functional quantum computers. So this word's been thrown around a lot lately, especially quantum. I feel like I've read sci-fi books with the word quantum thrown in the title that had nothing to do with the story, and it's like the cool thing to throw into your techno jargon. The quantum generator. Like, that doesn't even make sense. Here's what it is: a quantum computer, instead of using electrons and distributing ones and zeros, this is going to use atoms or particles with 3 different states. So basically, electronic computers use what's called bits, and a bit is a 1 or 0. It's a 1 digit. It's an on or an off signal, and binary is ones and zeros. It goes through the circuits, it goes into the processors, and it decodes what those calculations actually turn out to be as far as numbers, letters, and codes and stuff like that. So everything we have electronically works on ones and zeros. However, in the quantum computing world, we now have a new state that particle or data carrying thing can be, and now we call them qubits instead of bits. And a qubit is a particle that can have a 3rd state, which is both 1 and 0 at the same time. It gets really weird with quantum mechanics because when you observe something, that's when you find out what it truly is. But until you observe something, you don't know what it is. When it's in that in-between state, it's really, really weird. And honestly, I don't quite have my brain wrapped around it, so I'm sorry if I'm butchering this. But what I do know is that quantum computers will open up a whole new horizon of speed and processing capabilities that we don't have anything close to these days.
Yeah.
You may have heard that term crunching numbers. And that's basically when a processor is running through your calculations, and it can only do, X number of calculations at a time, and so fast. The more processors you have, or if you're using things like GPUs, you might be able to do, simultaneous equations and add things up quicker. But a quantum computer will be able to do things possibly even thousands to 1,000,000 times faster than a traditional computer processor can. Wow. And that's awesome for a lot of different industries. Things like weather prediction, financial forecasting, scientific equations, and scientific simulations. Also, things that include encryption will really be affected in some really powerful and good ways by quantum computing. So I'm really got my fingers crossed that I have a quantum cell phone in the next few decades, because that'd be awesome. So on top of on top of this new 3rd state that we can have on a data carrying particle, we also have entanglement, which is a really weird aspect of quantum mechanics where 2 particles, think of them as identical twins from creation. Yeah. They are entangled, and thus they are created into perfect identical twins. And no matter how far apart you separate these particles, they copy each other. So if you reverse the polarity or the spin on one particle, the other one, no matter where it is in the galaxy, in the universe, it will also have a reverse polarity. Now, once you observe that particle, or once you measure it, then you know what it is. But when you change one particle, it's going to change the other one, regardless of space and distance. And I mean, that screams to me like instantaneous wireless, communication through space. But there's other things that come into play with this, such as safer forms of encryption. So So very promising. I'm really hoping that this quantum computing stuff keeps moving along.
Mind blown.
Oh, I hope it keeps moving along right now. There's a company called D-Wave, as in like data wave.
Yeah.
D-Wave.
They released the D-Wave 2000Q. It is an early form of a quantum computer with, I think I've got this laying around. I may go buy one. It's got a $15 million price tag.
Oh,
wow.
No problem. That's under my mattress right now.
Yeah. And so this stuff's going to have to come a long way before I get one. I'll have the iPhone X before I have a quantum computer.
So is this thing basically a fancy calculator? Like, what all can it do?
You know what? I haven't been able to find any information about that as far as what it can do. But yeah, it's a $15 million calculator.
You got to buy it first to find out.
Only.
Yeah. Yeah. Only $15 million.
Pocket change.
Well, thank you, Josh, for joining us once again. It was great having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, you, Nate. You're always here anyway, but it's
Yeah,
good to
thanks
hear
for having me.
you. Again.
And again and again.
For all the listeners out there, we'd love to know what technologies you would love to see in the future, whether it's ones that we've mentioned on the show or something that you grew up hoping would exist by now and you find yourself saying, it's 2018, come on. I find myself saying that all the time.
Yeah.
We love to hear from all of you. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Visionary Variety Podcast. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you won't miss any of our future episodes. You can also find our previous episodes there and listen whenever you want. We'd love to hear from our listeners, so if you have any comments or suggestions for a future episode, you can reach us at tvvpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again, and have a great week.
Where's my hoverboard?
I need my lightsaber and my hoverboard and my communicator. Right now. Steve Jobs.